So Star Wars Jedi Survivor has finally been released after years of anticipation. However, there has been a lot of talk surrounding this game due to its issues with its launch, so you may be wondering what I think of this game. Well, the best way I can describe the current state of Jedi Survivor is it's an amazing Star Wars experience that's being muddied by being forcibly pushed out as an unfinished product. Unfortunately, following what is becoming a trend in the gaming industry, which it really shouldn't be a trend. When I spend $60, or in this case $70 on a game, at the very least, I expect this game to work properly. With that being said, I know I'm addressing the obvious here, but it is true that this game is super buggy across all platforms right now. Especially on PC. Like, I genuinely feel sorry for all the PC players out there, because it is like borderline unplayable right now. I myself played this game on PS5 in the performance mode, which from what I've been seeing is currently one of the best ways to play the game in the current state. The best probably being the quality mode, but I like my higher frame rate. But even then, I still have my own slew of issues I had to deal with when playing this game. Now, to be clear, this footage you are seeing throughout this video is exactly how my game looked. So if the video ever seems like it drops in quality, or there's a bunch of lag, it's not the video, it's just how the game is right now. This game has a lower resolution than most games, sitting around 720p in performance mode, and around 920p in quality mode, which in turn drops the game's frame rate to 30 FPS instead of the intended 60 of the performance mode. However, even in performance mode, which targets 60 FPS, a lot of times my game would drop down to like 40. It's pretty jarring at first, but I did learn to ignore it over time. Now, this isn't me trying to act like the performance issues don't exist or anything, or should be excused, because they absolutely shouldn't be. The way this game launched is absolutely ridiculous, especially considering this is a AAA company. But it is especially unfortunate that this launch is so buggy, because underneath all of the issues with the performance lies possibly one of the best Star Wars games ever made. So going forward, I'm just going to focus on the game itself and not the bugs that currently surround it. However, all these issues will be negatively impacting my final score of this game. But from here, I want to transition into this game's gameplay. The gameplay of Jedi Survivor is unsurprisingly mostly similar to the gameplay of Jedi Fallen Order. But I don't have any sort of issue with that, as that was always the best aspect of the previous game, especially when it comes to its combat system. This time around though, the combat system is much more fleshed out, with Cal now having access to 5 different fighting stances, instead of the 2 he had in the previous game. But those 2 did also return in this one. Now, only 2 of these can be equipped at a time, but that doesn't matter, as each of these forms feels so different from the others. Every player is going to find the 2 that they latch onto, and will probably use them throughout most of the game. My personal favorites were the new blaster stance and the dual wielding stance. There is also this crossguard stance, but truthfully that one didn't click with me. But I'm sure this is more of a personal preference thing, as I always just like playing my games with faster combat, even if I hit for less damage, as opposed to playing as like an absolute powerhouse that swings their weapons around like an 86-year-old man with a barely functioning back. Something else that was more fleshed out in this game was the new skill tree system. This game still has this Soulsborne mechanic of upgrading your character at the meditation points, but instead of having one skill tree in this game, there are a plethora of them, each relating to a different skill set. Each of the lightsaber stances gets one, as well as Cal's basic stats like HP or force meter, and there is also a skill tree for Cal's new force abilities, such as his confusion power, that I forgot existed almost my entire playthrough of this game. This is just due to the fact that the force abilities do not feel nearly as strong or as useful during combat in this new game, which in turn made me put more focus on honing my lightsaber skills this time around. However, there are still good uses for the occasional force push or pull, just to throw the enemies off balance, so they aren't totally useless in this game. But now I want to move away from the combat side of things and mention the exploration side of things. There is a night and day difference with the worlds between these 2 games. I will admit, I would not say I was necessarily impressed with the worlds in Fallen Order. Like, they're fine, but none of them really stood out in my mind, other than maybe Kashyyyk or Dathomir. But that's because those worlds are also in other forms of Star Wars media prior to being in Fallen Order. But these worlds in Jedi Survivor caught me genuinely off guard. The worlds in this game are just so huge, and have so much to find in them. This game also has an overhauled version of the parkour system, which feels much more fluent in this game, and I feel like this is due to not only having all the traversal abilities from the original game, such as the wall run or the double jump, right off the bat, but there's also new additions like this new grapple hook mechanic and the force stash that make traversal quicker than it ever was before, and you can even travel farther distances than you could in the original game. There's also a lot of characters to meet throughout the worlds, and a lot of enemies genuinely have really funny dialogue with each other, which you can sit back and listen to before you ambush them.
I got it so easy. Guard the cliff, crush the locals, look at the scenery. Nobody's getting past me, not without a blaster hole in him. I wonder if I'll get promoted for doing such a good job. Then I'll get the other droids to guard the cliff. Oh, but then I won't see the scenery. Now that's a dilemma.
I feel like these additions brought so much more life into this game, as a complaint I had with Fallen Order was just how dead quiet the game was so much of the time. But adding all of these new fun, zany characters throughout the worlds just added an extra layer to the world building. But on top of all of these side characters, there's still a fun main cast in this game, with both returning characters as well as new additions. Now, in my recent video I did revisiting Fallen Order, I said how my main issue with the game was how I liked the characters from the last game, but I feel like I never got to really know them, as Cal was usually separated from the group in the game. I even suggested in that video, there should be times where Cal should have a companion character, similar to like Atreus in God of War 2018, just to have back and forth conversations with to build relationships. And what do you know? They actually did that, and it did wonders for letting these characters develop together. There are also a lot more cutscenes of the characters just spending time together, not even necessarily in combat. Like, some of the scenes are literally just them eating together. But these scenes really let you get a sense that these characters are close to each other, and all of the characters feel so much more fleshed out. I would say the only character this doesn't apply to as much is Seer, but truthfully, her story was mostly told in Fallen Order, and she was more fleshed out than even Cal in that game. So to me, this isn't really that big of a deal, and it kind of makes sense for her character. But characters like Grease and Marin are so much more likable in this game and no longer feel one-dimensional. But the character who got the absolute deluxe treatment with development is Cal Kestis himself. I won't get too far into how any of these characters have developed in this game, as I would dive way too much into spoiler territory, and I don't want to do spoilers in these reviews. But I won't lie when I say this new version of Cal feels like he's been through some shit, and is not holding back at all in this new game. Cal is becoming more and more one of my favorite Star Wars characters the more I'm getting to know him, and I can't wait to see what they do with him in the future. But moving on from the characters, I want to lastly briefly discuss the story a little bit though, but no spoilers of course. Now I saved this for the end as I absolutely love the story that was told in this game. The story felt more like a Star Wars movie story than most of the actual movies or shows we've gotten since Disney has bought the franchise. Also, I have heard some say they had issue with like the last 10-ish% of the game leading up to the finale, but personally, I didn't get that fatigue that others got, so I really have no issues with the narrative in this game. But then again, I've heard most other reviewers say it takes them like 30 hours to finish the game, but I finished it in 19, so maybe that factors into it. But I will conclude this part by saying if you are already a Star Wars fan, you will love this story and overall world building in this game. Especially as this game has the first on-screen appearance of anything from the High Republic era. So to finish this video off, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is overall a great experience, especially for already existing Star Wars fans. This game improves on basically everything from Fallen Order in my eyes, and I had an absolute blast returning to Cal Kestis' story and experiencing this new adventure of his. However, the technical issues plaguing this game cannot be ignored. So unfortunately, my final score for this game is going to have to be a 7.2 out of 10. Again, while I didn't personally suffer from as many issues as some other users, I only had frame rate drops and occasional texture pop-ins. I have to consider myself lucky, as I know many others out there have had major issues playing this game. But these will hopefully all be fixed soon, as truthfully, if the game wasn't as buggy as it is right now, it would be an easy 8.5 out of 10. This just goes to show delaying a game as long as necessary is always the right call if it means there will be a finished and polished product when it comes out. Because while the delays may suck at the time, the finished product will more than likely make up for the delays. But that's all I have to say for now. Thank you guys so much for watching this entire video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on Jedi Survivor in the comments below. And hopefully, I will catch you guys all in the next video.